everybody. This is Miss Marianne from PLC Homeschool Learning and Curriculum. Today I'm going to show you some of my curriculum books that I offer for the early learners. And just to let you know, let me give you my website first. It is www.schoolsuppliesandcurriculumboxes.com. Once again, that's www.schoolsuppliesandcurriculumboxes.com. You can buy our PLC curriculum there for early learners all the way up until 5th grade. You can also purchase school supplies for the beginning of their school year. So let's get started. First of all, here's my workbooks. I've got a couple workbooks here. I have a math workbook, I have the numbers workbook, and I have the alphabet workbook. We're going to get started with learning how to write correctly and hold a pencil correctly for the early learners. So here we have the letter B. Before you hand them their workbook, what you want to do first is get the correct writing on here for them. So if you're using highlighters, we're going to highlight. If you're using boxes, you're going to do boxes. If you're using just X's, you're going to do your X's before you actually hand them the workbook. So here we have the letter B. We need our 3 highlighters. We need our green for our beginning learners, our pink, which is a little bit lighter for the middle learners, and our yellow for our advanced learners who are starting to write correctly on their own. Most important thing here is to allow your students to do top to bottom progression. So here we have our B. You want them to start from the top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. So we always want to encourage top to bottom. Remember, at PLC we encourage, not discourage. So if they do start at the bottom, we're not going to discourage them. We're going to say something like, let's go ahead and start at the top again. So we go up from top to bottom, top to bottom. So remember, always encouraging your learners. So first, let's go ahead and get started. So if I have an early learner, I'm going to use my green dark highlighter, and I'm going to trace the B before I hand them their worksheet. So you're doing this beforehand. There's my B. And if they're still learning how to write, I'm write a couple more B's. Let's trace our lowercase b. Couple more lowercase b's if they're just beginning to learn how to write. You can do fully highlight all the way to the end if you want to, but I'm using this space to show you something else in a second. So I used my green, and most importantly, for PLC to get my learners to write from top to bottom progression is I must start putting my X's. Every time they see a piece of paper where they need to write, you must put their X's so they get visually see all the X's and always start on the X. Always remind them, start on the X. Start on the X, start on the X, start on the X. Same thing with your lowercase letters. Make sure you put your X's. So then they can go ahead and start on the X, go down, pick up their pencil, come around and around. But you always want to encourage them to start on the X first. If they're going to go ahead and trace all the way around, if they already know how to trace or are starting to make their lines a little bit better, not so crooked, they hold their pencil a little bit more stable, then you can move on to the pink highlighter. So we'll do the pink highlighter. It's a little bit lighter for them. And that's if you have middle learners who are starting to create lines on their own. So there's my pink highlighter. Don't forget your X's. Once they start writing on their own, of course, we go to the yellow highlighter. The yellow highlighter is almost invisible, meaning that it's going to be disappearing soon, and your students starting to create their lines on their own. And with the yellow highlighter, you can see if their lines are crooked, straight, or if they're going the correct way. So here, let's just say my students are already learning how to write B's, and they know how to do the top to bottom progression, top to bottom. So now I'm going to create my boxes with my X to encourage them to write on their own. So they're going to go ahead and start on the X, make their capital B, start on the X, make their lowercase b. And the reason why I use these boxes is to keep our students from making huge B's all across the paper or making really tiny, tiny B's. This helps them keep their letters and numbers in formation with the box. They do not come out of the box. So even when the boxes disappear, your student should still be able to form letters correctly without writing them all over the page or really, really super small. So here I'm using a medium grade box. So you can use a smaller grade box if you want smaller letters, or more of a wider, larger box for more of the preschool students to make bigger letters. But as long as they're staying in the box, it's very important to keep them in the box. So that's what my boxes are for. Once they start writing on their own and their formation is in the box, not all over the page, then we can move on to just adding our X's. And there we go, we added our X's. One thing that's really important too is at the top of the page, you always want to write their name. Each worksheet they do needs to have their name on it. And if they're just starting, then you highlight their name with green and you put your X's and have them trace it from top to bottom. If they're starting to write their name just a little bit better, then you're going to start with your pink. It's a little bit lighter, and start on their X's from top to bottom. When they are starting to show signs of forming their letters correctly and holding a pencil correctly, then you can go to the yellow, which is much lighter. And then what we do after the yellow is we make our boxes. Our boxes are important to keep their name right, nice and neat on the line. You don't want them to write their name all over the paper or super, super big. So then you form the boxes and the X's so they stay with their names in the boxes. Okay, so that's my alphabet book. Also, when you hand them the alphabet book, it's all traced and ready to go. You're going to tell them, we are working on the letter B. And B says ba. B is for butterfly. This is the letter B. B says ba, and B is for butterfly. So when you repeat that a couple of times, it sticks in their head. It can make kind of a song if you want to. You can point to the letter B and say, what letter is this? And they'll tell you B. And then you can ask them, what does B say? B says ba. And what is B for? And they'll point to the butterfly. And then you can go ahead and start with their writing skills down here with capital B, lowercase b. And on the bottom of the worksheet, it says draw a line to get the bear, B for bear, to the ball, B for ball. So we're going to draw a line. And if they can't do this on their own, that's also what I use highlighters for. You can highlight the line for them and they can trace it just so they're getting the bear to the ball. Okay, so that's just the alphabet book. There's a lot of different letters in here. There's also at the end where they start to form all the letters on their own. You can make the boxes or highlighting. We have V here. This is one where I just had the boxes for a student who was already writing on their own. W has nothing on it. You can create your own. They all come blank, so if you want to create highlighting, you do that. Or boxes or X's, whatever level your student is at that time. Okay? So let's move on to our math. How you would teach them to write their numbers is practically the same thing. Don't forget to write their name on top. And when we're doing math with them, we're going to count with them. We're going to say, how many cats are there? 1, 2. And then you ask them, how many cats do you see? They're going to say 2. You write the letter 2 for them and don't forget the X. Then we go down and count our rabbits. If they're counting already on their own, they may point to each one and count them. I like them to point while they're counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many rabbits do we have all together? We have 4. So you write the number 4 for them if needed. If not, you can just make a box and they can create the 4. Or you can highlight with the pink or the yellow. And then we just move on to the rest of the page with our counting. But don't forget to write their name at the top. Every time they see their name, they're going to trace it, start with the X, and before you know it, they're writing their name on their own. But this is repetitive learning. Students need repetition. Always write their name. Don't forget their name. Always highlight. Don't forget that. Don't forget your X's. If they don't see their X, they'll probably ask you, where's my X? Because they like repetition. Students learn through repetition. So the more they repeat something, the more they learn it. So if they're not counting 2 cats, you're going to repeat it with them. 1, 2. Now it's your turn to count, and they'll tell you. 1, 2. How many cats in all? And you're going to circle it because all means all together, and then you write your 2. This would be kind of how they start to form their letters here. Their numbers, sorry, working on numbers. My workbook has, you can go ahead and they can practice their 5s, their 6s, their 7s, 8s, and 9s. You can highlight here for them, or you can do the boxes or the X's, whatever level your student is at. And don't forget their name at the top of the paper. Name is very important. So this math book has a lot of counting. We even have some number connecting, starting with 1, ending at number 16 here. We also have just straight tracing, but even if they have tracing, such as this page, you must highlight and you must put your X's. That's very, very important that we put our X's. Our last one is numbers. We're just going to go through this one really quickly. If they're already forming numbers on their own, you're going to make your boxes at the end. Or you can just do your highlighting across. Or you can just make your X's, wherever level your student is at. And don't forget their name at the top. Remember, repetition is where students start learning. Repetition. That's what we encourage here at PLC. Repetition. So those are my workbooks. You can order my workbooks at my website. It's www.schoolsuppliesandcurriculumboxes.com. These are just the early learning skills. I create all kinds of curriculum. I also create school boxes for them to start. So if they're starting pre-kindergarten next fall, then I can create a school box that will help them along before they start it. And also I have more YouTubes creating videos on how to actually use my curriculum. So thank you for joining me. This is my second video. I was encouraged to do more, so when I find some time, I'll get some more videos out there with math, language arts, spelling. I'll also do more of the algebra with 5th graders and 4th graders, multiplication, division. But all of that can be found on my website also. So don't forget, make sure that you guys have a pink day. Thank you.